No matter what you've faced in your life, no matter what you've gone through, the regrets you may have for missed opportunities, those don't disqualify you. Rather, they uniquely qualify you. They uniquely qualify you because you can impart wisdom. You can impart lessons learned. You can speak into the lives of those following behind. We need you. The world needs you to step up and have vision again. Use your imagination. What can my life look like? Welcome to Next Third, Best Third. Hi, welcome back to Next Third, Best Third. I'm David Fenwick, your founder and your host. I'm so excited about today. Today we're going to be talking about the necessity to fight the decay of your physical condition, specifically talking about exercise. And, wherever you are on the scale right now, wherever you find yourself, you may have not exercised for years, maybe you never did, maybe you're kind of into it off and on. We're going to discuss how important physical exercise is to your overall health, your overall well-being, and how to manage that exercise, right? So that you don't injure yourself or you don't get burned out. And so I'm with my dear friend, Carrie Jensen. Carrie.
Hi.
So good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I am too. Yep. So been wanting to do this for a while, right?
Yeah.
Why don't you start just telling our listeners about yourself?
Sure. Well, again, thank you, David. My name is Carrie, and I've been a personal trainer for 17 years. I have quite a few certifications having to do continuing education. So I have a few TRX certifications, and if you're not familiar with TRX, it's total body resistance. I'm sure if you've been in a gym or if you have a home gym, you've seen these black and yellow straps. So I love to train clients on that. It's probably one of my favorites, but I also have a certification in myofascial release and foam rolling. I'm actually a boxing instructor. I grew up doing taekwondo and kickboxing. So those are just a few of the things I like to do. Oh, and I did bodybuilding and figure and bikini competitions.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you've done the gamut.
Yes.
And then some.
Yeah. Now I do triathlons, so I'm all over the place.
Iron Man, Iron Woman, right? That sort of thing. So a boxer, right? Training in boxing. I don't know if I'd like to get in the ring with you. That'd be a little bit scary. So.
If you have sparring gear on, it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But one of the things I really like about boxing is the rotational movement. And I was just having a discussion about rotational movement being a movement for longevity. So that's something that a lot of people we can talk more on that as we go too, but anything with rotational movements is something we do in everyday life when we're putting away our dishes, when we're, putting a book on a shelf, we're rotating, when you go to get the toilet paper off the toilet paper roll. So those rotational movements, those are movements for longevity.
Okay, so you're really kind of incorporating what we do in everyday life and training that, right?
Yeah.
I think so often, you go to the gym and you're just doing these kind of static, and sometimes I see the weightlifting and you kind of go, will I ever really do that motion? So you're talking about something that we all do all the time, right?
Yeah.
So Next Third, Best Third is all about fighting areas of decay, right?
Yeah.
The decay of cognitive decay, physical decay, our emotions, our relationships, and what we call spiritual, which are things like shame and regret and things like that. They're all intertwined. You can't separate them, right?
Yeah.
You incorporate or work on one, it's going to impact the other.
Yep.
But one of the things that I've seen in my own life is, we met at the gym, and how crucial working out has been to me. I mean, I went through a terrible situation 5-6 years ago, relationship breakup, and that's self-care, right? Being there, it's helped me emotionally. It's helped me, my mind, my thoughts about myself, everything, right?
Yep.
So as a trainer, you work with all sorts of people. What would you say are some of the most impactful and measurable changes that you see with your clients over time?
Sure. Consistency is one of the biggest things. So it doesn't have to be a lot. It has to be showing up every day. So when I have a new client that comes to me and says, okay, I want to do this X, Y, and Z. These are my goals. I haven't worked out or this. I will do, an assessment with them and give them homework to do. And I tell them who my clients that do the homework I give them to start with. And it's usually some basic things. But I say the ones that do it, I can tell. And they make exponential progress.
Right.
So just adding in some of those little bits of exercises consistently, doing something every day. So it's kind of like, don't let a day that ends in Y, go by without doing something for yourself. So again, it doesn't have to be a lot. A few things that are kind of my rule of thumb rules. You can't out-train a bad diet. So it all starts with diet, but at the same time, the only way to change the shape of your body is to put it under load. So that means to incorporate weights.
Right.
And so they play important roles for each other. So if you're eating right, you're more likely to want to stick to a training program, and you're more likely to feel better in your training program if you're eating right. So starting to look at both things. But again, you can eat yourself fit. You really could. So a huge part of that is the nutrition. 80 to 90% of it is the nutrition.
Right.
Because that's going to make you feel good. You're going to be getting the vital nutrients that your body needs. But at the same time, for those hormones to be released, to get those happy molecules that come out, like you have to contract your muscles.
Right.
So they both need each other.
It's interesting because when I first started training back in the day for like marathons, I wanted to do triathlon, except I can't balance well on wheels. So the bicycle part was no good for me. But I would run and train running, and I would swim, and I taught myself how to swim. But one of the things that I found is as I was working out, my body, it's like I naturally started eating better. Right? Because it's like I was putting so much effort into working out and so much effort into building myself up that I started to naturally avoid, right?
Yeah.
And so you're kind of saying that like if you start to, on the dietary side, the nutrition side, you can eat yourself into fitness. But on the other side, if you're working out, if you are careful, right, and you're incorporating certain simple changes into your diet, it just all goes together, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And finding what works for you, like certain foods work better for some people.
Yeah.
I've been plant-based for the last 3 years. But, like some people that just doesn't work for them.
Right.
And then, so just finding something that works for you, that makes you feel good, that you find that you're recovering. I think that's really key.
Yeah. So you're plant-based. I'm high protein, animal protein, and high fat, right?
Yeah.
And I totally get along with you. I totally respect you
Yeah.
and love you. But the coffee thing is what's driving me crazy. You stopped drinking coffee.
Yes. Yeah. About 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And I never thought I'd be a person to stop drinking coffee. And I woke up in the morning looking forward to my double shot of espresso. Like that was, even my doctors were like, before I have circulation issues, and they were like, you should probably stop it on the caffeine. But I was like, that's my one vice. I love coffee.
Yeah.
And, but I was having some anxiety and gut issues, and I was working so much, and I never thought that I could handle not having coffee at work. So I had done my research on mushroom coffee and
Mushroom juice.
Yeah. So, I switched over, and I actually had 0 withdrawals from caffeine.
That's good.
And my energy was amazing. I felt actually like no more brain fog. I really was more productive in my meetings. I was holding meetings better. Yeah. Even my coworkers were like, wow, Carrie, what have you done?
Right.
So the few things that I'm very religious on my morning routine is my mushroom coffee. And I add in some prebiotic fiber. So that helps me not have sugar cravings all day. And I add creatine in. So I take creatine daily. That really helps me also with my mental focus. That's a big supplement. That there's a lot of research on creatine. So
I've looked into creatine. When I first started working out, creatine to me was more of a muscle builder, and that kind of thing. And I think studies have really shown where it's far more than that.
So much more.
Yeah.
And I used to think, so let's see, in my 20s, I competed in, I did figure and bikini competitions for 5 years. And I worked with bodybuilders a lot. I worked on a lot of different diets. I used to write diets. And so creatine was like, oh, the creatine monohydrate you got to have so that you can bulk. And but there's so much more to creatine than just that. And so, yeah.
We'll probably swing back into the nutrition thing, but one of the things with your coffee is because so many studies that I've read is how they want you to incorporate coffee into your diet. But for you specifically, you found out that was just a no-no. You found out it's just, it ruins your gut.
I just thought it was kind of normal, drink your coffee and, just have your stomach, just, a lot of people do drink it to have that, morning routine.
Right.
But I found really once I quit having it, how much more regular I got. Like everything just settled. And again, my energy was amazing. And I do think a large part of it was having the mushroom coffee help with. There's a big part of the body in the brain on routine. Yeah. So your brain craves routine. So having something to substitute was, I think, a huge thing.
Yeah.
I think that was a big part of that. So the mushroom coffee, I was like, well, this is it tastes like weak coffee. But it gave me that, and I didn't have any withdrawals, and my mental focus and everything was great.
That's so great.
Again, I never thought that would happen.
So let's segue into training and exercise.
Yeah.
So a lot of our listeners, right, they're committed to making the next third of their life the best third of life. And it doesn't, I've had so many conversations with guys in particular that they might be in their early 40s, they might be 50s and 60s or beyond. But, I find that even guys who are in their late 30s and early 40s, they're in this season of their life that they're busy, they're building, right? They're building careers, they're building their family, and it might be like years since they actually worked out, right? And then you get the guys in their 50s and 60s who maybe haven't worked out in like 25, 30 years.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So from your experience, because, I've seen it in the gym where guys come in and they just overdo it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They
come in, they overdo it, and then they come in for a few weeks, and it goes back to that what I was saying about consistency. Yeah. Where I've had plenty of clients come in that haven't been training and they need a routine and they want to start getting back into it.
Right.
So some of those, the basics is that foundational principle of working on stability. So a lot of times people see people in the gym working with Bosu balls or something, and they're
Bosu balls?
Yeah, and those round, exercise balls. And they're like, what are they doing on there? Why would you, this is a big waste of time, and that's not true.
Right.
Because working on those stabilizer muscles, and don't feel like that you have to, go pick up heavy weights and then, just do chest press or, squats. Those are great. I mean, there's those foundational movements of a squat, a hinge, pulling, working those are important, but we got to get those stabilizers to be able to control that before we can increase the load.
Right. So we work out at the same gym. That's where we met, but I see men coming in and you could tell they're like they're just re-engaging, right? And the first thing they do is they go to the bench press, right? They go to the bench press and they go to curls, and into curls, their form is terrible. But learning, as you're saying, is to recognize, hey, let's work on our stability. Let's work on our core stuff.
Yeah.
That's so much more important, right?
Exactly. If you want to go do bench press, why don't you try doing some push-ups?
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's a lot of strength. That's all body weight, and that's a lot of strength right there.
Right.
And so, can we properly do a push-up? And if you can't do proper form in a push-up, do it on your knees.
Yeah.
And wow, that is eye-opening. On okay, this is how many push-ups. I mean, that's part of my initial assessment with clients. How many push-ups can we do with proper form? And then it's like, okay, so then we can work on that core strength.
Right.
Because every single movement that you're going to do, it starts from your core. So I was thinking about this conversation today, coming in and talking to you, and even just core exercises. And so it's funny when a lot of people think about, I'm going to go do abs and like start throwing in crunches, and don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with doing those kinds, but really those foundational core, like a standing, when you stand and you lift one knee up, and then you're going to hold something, like working on that balance at the same time. When you hold like a weight and you extend it away from your body, and all of a sudden you feel your core engage.
Right.
Those foundational like things that you're going to feel that engage. So let's do some of those things.
Absolutely.
And same thing, you got to use that core when you're holding your plank in that push-up.
Yeah. So it's like building, for lifestyle. It's like yesterday I moved. I relocated yesterday. So in the move, I found myself, picking up these boxes. And as you say, you pick up the boxes and you're kind of extending it and everything. And what a difference, even at my age, right? That I'm moving all these boxes, and they're not having any effect on me because my core has gotten so strong, right?
Good.
It's not because my arms have gotten strong; it's because my core has gotten so strong. So let's go. We've got guys here saying, okay, I want to make the next third the best third. I want to start exercising. Let's take a hypothetical guy, and he's 50-some years old, and he comes. And how would you start him?
Ooh. Okay, so first of all, I mean, everybody's different, so it depends on a lot of things. Does he have a desk job? What is he normally doing? What does a daily life look like? But for a large part of the population, let's just say he has a desk job, so he's sitting a lot, right? So we need to work on some mobility as well. So there's the core and mobility, because he's probably got tight hip flexors. So say they want to go squat, or and so looking at your movement patterns, how do they move? Like look at yourself in the mirror when you squat. Are you shifting from one side to the other? So working on, I tell a lot of my clients to incorporate yoga, because we can get some of those, and like restorative yoga. And so you can get some of those stretches in those hip flexors, and you can also work on some of that balance. But I think one of the biggest things is working on that hip mobility, for anybody. I mean, every one of my new clients that comes in, they all have some kind of tight hips. So I would have them start with some kind of mobility training, stability training, all of that.
So you would say before you go in there and start pumping iron.
Yeah, and especially going into a loaded squat. Now, let's see how you move first when you're in that squat.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a movement pattern screening that you can do, and just look for tightness, and work on some of that mobility. It doesn't mean that you can't start to train.
Right.
You just need to not go under heavy amounts of load till we can get those mobility, and get those hip flexors, released, and yeah.
Sure. It's interesting because, I would recommend to anybody who wants to start working out that you find a good trainer. I mean, that's just the truth. I didn't know you when I started, and I had a trainer.
Yeah.
And she was fantastic, right? She was really great. She helped me so much. She drove me crazy. I posted on her Facebook page one day this meme that I saw, and it says, "Well, I've never seen Satan and my trainer in the same room at the same time."
I definitely, I have clients that say, you can hate me now, but you'll love me later.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. But I've seen you working with clients, and I know, first off, I know how much you care, and I love the fact that you're very diverse, and you've got yoga, and and the TRX bands, and besides just the weightlifting, and I see how you listen, and I think that's a big thing is to we talk all the time on Next Third Best Third about taking honest assessment of yourself, just examining yourself, right? And a life worth living is the examined life. And so looking at yourself, where you're at right now and the position that you're at is saying, hey, I want to invest. It's worthwhile for me to be intentional about my well-being and my health. And to do so, to find somebody like yourself who can walk you through at least to get you started, right?
Yeah. Well, I had a client say this to me one time, and it was, so I've been a trainer for so long. It's literally like eating, sleeping, breathing. I can talk to the subject, with ease. But it's, she made the comment because she works on computers, and she was helping me build something on a website. And, it was just like, it was so easy for her. And she said, see, this is how I feel when you tell me something about working out. And so I thought, wow, that's really perfect, because I would hire somebody to help me with something on a computer,
Right.
And learn this program. But for me, like the nutrition and training, I've been doing it for so long that I can talk to it like that.
Right.
So would you hire a computer software person to write your training program? It's exactly like I can look at a body and I can see how they move, and I can see that they're shifting, so I can tell of what muscles it could possibly be that's tight.
Yeah.
Like what's causing them to move like that. It could be this muscle, it could be this one or that one. So we're going to work on those. And does this one need to be strengthened? Does this one need to be lengthened? Like I can look at the body and I can tell.
I love that, because what's more important than our physical health, right? What's more important than this body that we've been given, right? We've been given this body. This is what's going to take us into the next third of our life. And that is more important than a computer, right? It's more, and yet you would hire somebody to help you with those other things.
Yeah.
That's why I tell everybody, find a good trainer. But there is a difference. We don't need to go too deep on this one, but to find someone like yourself who's very well trained, 17 years experience. You've trained in yoga, you trained in the TRX bands, you're trained as a boxing, in boxing and so much more. I think it's important. I think it's imperative, guys, that when you start this journey is to partner with somebody, do the research, and find somebody nearby who's not just someone in the gym, but someone who really knows what they're talking about, right?
I've seen people in the gym, like they're training somebody else, but they're, kind of doing it under the, like, oh, we're just training together. But, and it's funny, like you'll see people who call themselves trainers, and I'll just look and go, they're not a trainer.
Right.
They go and work out, and they've been working out, and they're working towards it, but they're not helping that person with what their problems are.
Right. Right. Yeah, I know that the foundational things that my trainer back in the day gave me, she laid the foundation where I could build off that, and then she actually set me on this journey to where, of course, on YouTube and all these different places you can research and watch it.
Yeah.
But the thing that I see so often, and I'm sure it drives you crazy, because it drives me crazy, when I look in the gym and I see the horrible form, of these guys, just doing everything wrong.
Had some clients that have struggled with form. I've seen it a lot, and I had this one client. He is a great client. I really enjoyed having him. But we had been training, and finally one day he came to me. He said, "I get it. Oh my gosh. It's all about form."
Right.
It's like, that's what I've been trying to tell you. But it was like, oh my gosh, it just was this epiphany that I'm trying to do all these movements, and you tell me to do a lunge, and I'm gonna execute a lunge as fast as I can and get it done. And then it was like, no, it's about the range of motion in that can you safely do that movement through the range of motion that you need to execute that movement, and control that. And so it's not about just bust out a lunge as fast as you can. It's the time under tension that your body needs for those muscles to be in that movement. That's where you're going to get the benefit out of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So would you suggest to someone starting just to set your pride aside, use lighter weights?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And can you control that movement through that range of motion? Once you can do that, then you can start increasing the load.
Right.
But I always tell my clients also, those first 2 weeks of training, those are your kind of like assessments anyways of where I'm at with weight, where I'm at with those movements. And then you can start like, okay, was I very sore? If I wasn't very sore and I could, do the full range of motion with good form, yeah, let's go up. Let's increase,
Right.
what can we change to make that harder? But not until you have those other things.
So it's not just enough for a guy to say, hey, I'm out of shape. I'm 40 pounds overweight. I got to do something about this. It's about a guy coming and saying, all right, I need to change.
Yeah.
But I need to assess honestly where I'm at.
40 pounds overweight, we really need to look at diet.
Yeah.
And really take a look at what you're eating, when you're eating, how much you're eating. Are you eating enough?
Yeah.
I think also that's a really large part of it is, are we eating enough? And what are we eating? Is it quality? You know? How many ingredients are in that food that we're eating?
Right. Part of what I do is what we call life coaching, and I get guys, and one gentleman in particular I'm working with right now, he's extremely overweight. And so when you were saying what you're eating and when you're eating, the very first thing that I do to any of these guys is I say, okay, I want you to journal for 1 week, everything you ingest and when you ingest it, because you need to know what you're dealing with, right?
Yeah.
So let me swing over towards this direction. There are men who are listening to us right now who are at a stage in their life where they say, man, I would love to exercise, but I've got arthritis, or I'd love to exercise, but I've got this problem, or I've got this problem. And you're uniquely qualified to speak into this. And I'd like for you to kind of, if you would, be a little transparent just about your own journey, because I kidded you earlier. I said, you're the most unfit, super fit person I've ever met.
Yeah. I've had friends back in the day say to me, you have no idea, you've always been in shape. You've always been, and I have been a trainer for 17 years, but I've been through quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I've been out of shape. Back in the day, when I was younger, I was like the skinny fat, so I was just a teenager, and so I just ate whatever, I had, no muscle. And then I got, my parents were active. I grew up with active, going bike riding. That was a huge part of our upbringing, going to a gym. Like we moved to a new place and the first thing our parents did was join a gym so that we could have some outlet. So I thought that was, looking back, that was really awesome that my parents cared about that kind of stuff. But then I got pregnant, had kids. I went from 117 pounds to 180 pounds.
Oh, wow.
And then after having my kids, I was at like that 140 and going, okay, what does this look like? And giving myself some grace to lose weight, get back in shape. And then I've had a string of different health issues in my life. So, I've had kidney problems. I've had a hysterectomy, and I had to have a total, a bunch of surgery, 200 internal stitches. I had to learn how to re-walk. And so I've been through a lot. So through all those things of not being able to work out, not being able to train, highs and lows, and all of my, lifelong journey of learning how to come back. So nutrition has always been a huge thing for me on coming back through nutrition. and I also tell clients this too, there's ebb and flow. You have to give yourself grace. Like I like all kinds of food. I like unhealthy food too. But it's like, okay, I'm not going to let myself continue down this path anymore. So I always say, it's only when you can recognize that and say, okay, I need to make a change. And then starting to be on that journey like that. I love when clients come to me and say, I don't want to be like this anymore.
Right.
Because that's where you're going to start to make a change, So looking at your nutrition. And so that was huge for me. Learning things that worked for me, what to do, and how to get back.
Yeah. In my coaching, what I talk all the time is about, because I'm not a nutritionist, right? And you and I eat different diets, you being plant-based and me being much more animal protein.
Yeah.
But we agree on so many things. There's certain things, like I will tell them, I said, let's look at your list and let's eliminate a few things. Like I don't ever talk to them about going on a diet. I talk to them about what are some of the key things you need to avoid, to eliminate.
Processed foods.
Come on. So that's what I want you to talk into. If you're to sit there and in your training and you went over their history of eating, what are a few key things that you would eliminate immediately? And then we can talk about a couple things you would add.
Sure. So I wouldn't call myself a nutritionist, but I have some nutrition training.
Right.
So I've taken, actually have several different certifications in nutrition, and my classes at CSU. But again, I'm not a nutritionist, but I do love nutrition.
Right. And we're speaking about you've got this whole background of training.
Yes, and a big background in nutrition.
Nor am I. So.
Well, so anyway, processed foods. Let's just, like when I made a comment earlier about how many ingredients are in your food, like when we look at a label and we see all these preservatives, just start to like recognize chemicals that we're putting in our bodies.
Right.
That if it's shelf stable for several years, is that something that's going to have some, nutritional value for you? So like starting to eat whole food, single ingredient things, adding in I actually really still go back to an apple a day keeps the doctor away.
So true.
Like single ingredient whole foods.
Yeah.
And I'm not totally against protein and animal meat. It just, I think that people eat too much meat sometimes, and then so that gets into being alkaline in your body. So making sure that you're still adding in your fruits and your vegetables, getting in your nutrition from your food.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting because when we talk about processed foods, so many foods are processed. Like if you take a tomato and you put it into a can, that's a process. But we're talking about these ultra processed foods, and you're probably not old enough, but I remember when the standard American diet was put out, the food pyramid, right? And that food pyramid, for those of you who don't know, and you could study this or research it, that was not put out by any nutritionist. That was put out by the big food industry.
USDA. It's made by the USDA.
But supported by the big food industry, right?
Well, yeah, because they want to tell you how much you need to consume so that they can sell this much.
That's right. So people like Kellogg's, who wanted to sell you all
corn.
That junk.
They want to get rid of that corn
And flour.
So they want people eating this much so they can say, we're going to sell this much each year.
Right. And so here you've got everything, what we talk about in the middle aisle of the grocery store. They take food and they break it down, deconstruct it, then they reconstruct it, adding all these things you can't pronounce and all these colors, and then they put it in this package, this box or a bag, and they sell it as food, but it's not food any longer.
Yeah.
It's a food-like substance, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I do know that, there's a lot of big industry behind food.
Right. And so that the standard American diet, SAD, is truly sad. It's terrible for you. I've said this before on an episode, saying if you can buy it in a gas station or convenience store, it's not food, right? But I love the fact that you're saying, so eliminate the ultra processed foods and replace it with whole food. Real food.
Real food.
Is there anything else that you would eliminate?
Alcohol.
Alcohol, come on. It's going to hurt a lot of you.
I'm not much of a drinker. I drink occasionally. I think when we just went to Las Vegas and I had one cocktail the whole time we were there. I'm not much of a drinker, but that's a big one. I know a lot of my clients, like to drink alcohol, but I know how bad it makes me feel.
Yeah.
So I not much. That's a big one.
Well, I told you before we started I was never a big drinker, but just recently, a couple weeks back, 3 weeks ago, I made the decision if I'm really going to be leading people into the next third, best third, I need to double down. So I'm double downing on my nutrition, on my working out, and I've eliminated all alcohol. I just said I'm not going to do it. And I'm telling you, the clarity of thought, the sleep patterns, I feel
so good.
So much better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. So, okay, so we're getting rid of ultra processed foods, getting rid of alcohol. Anything else that you would tell somebody to get rid of?
Sugar is, like sweets, and that falls into like just changing your nutrition. But sugar is it's an addiction, right?
Yeah.
And so cutting that out, like learning how to cut back, recognizing what sugar's in things, making good, changes.
Yeah.
So those substitutes, and I find as I get older, how much fruit tastes sweeter.
When you're not having the refined sugar.
Oh my gosh, like strawberries are actually sweet.
Yeah.
It's like, but your taste buds change every 7 years.
Yeah. Wow,
So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So like trying foods that you haven't had in a while and going, oh my gosh, try all the different kinds of food. So Dr. B is, his name is really long, but he's a...
So you just call him Dr. B?
Dr. B.
Okay.
I think he started out as a gut doctor.
Okay.
And, but I've read a lot of his books. He's a plant-based, but he talks about variety and how many different types of fruits and vegetables can you get in your diet.
Right.
And so when you go to the grocery store, look around and try to pick up a different kind of lettuce, a different type of tomato, and start getting those different types of variety. Even try to go to a different store,
right?
Because HEB where we live, they do have a really good variety. But when you go to Whole Foods, it's totally different.
Yeah,
when you go to
offer
Sprouts,
different kinds of
it's totally
fruit,
different.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, so trying different types of fruits, different types of vegetables, getting that variety, even in different kinds of nuts, you know.
Yeah, yeah, nuts is a big one. So yeah, I agree. You get rid of ultra processed foods, alcohol, refined sugars, and of course seed oils, vegetable oil, and all the seed oils. I'm big on avocado oil and coconut oil, and I cook. I'm really
big on not eating a lot of oil.
Yeah.
When you're plant based, something to think of, even when you are not plant based, is calorie high, nutrient poor. Yeah. And that I got from Dr. B too.
Yeah.
But it's
I'm not big on oils
anyways.
anyways. I just eliminated all the seed oils and everything. So let's, as we're getting close to ending up here, let's talk a little bit again, going back to exercise.
Go ahead. I think that's great, because one thing I would love to just circle back on is how to get started, where to get started. So starting with a mobility and a stability training program. Look into one, find one, do it consistently. It doesn't have to be a lot. When I first became a trainer, one of the first questions I was ever asked, if somebody only had an hour in a week, and their schedule was so crazy, that was it, what would you do? So I would do 5 minutes a day of like high intensity, jumping jacks for 30 seconds, rest, jumping jacks for 30 seconds, rest, run, sprint, run for 30 seconds, rest. Even if that's like a speed walk, something, 30 seconds. Give yourself 5 minutes where you get your heart rate as high as you can, bring it down, high as you can. And then on one of those days, you got what I think is like 20 to 25 minutes left. that's where do some strength training on that day.
Right.
You know, like if that's all that you had, throw those in, add a mobility, and then guess what's going to happen? You're going to start finding more than 5.
That's right.
Because you're going to say, that felt
You're
good.
going to prioritize
that
it,
felt,
right?
Yeah.
And one of the things too is when you're dealing with an older, overweight person, when we talk about, sprinting or fast activity, for them it might just be getting up and down out of a chair.
Exactly.
Right?
I did that with a client this morning.
Yeah.
Because back to that foundational we were talking about on those movement patterns, sit down, tap a seat, and get back up. Because if you're not doing a squat properly, tap a bench, stand back up, because that's going to help you train that
Right.
squat pattern. Like another thing that is huge, I haven't thought about this one in a long time, is looking in a mirror. I think that's huge for our society. People, I think, are intimidated by looking at themselves in a mirror.
Right.
They go into a gym and they're like, I don't want to see that. They don't want to look in the mirror. And get comfortable looking at yourself in the mirror and look at your posture, look at your form, and start being confident with that. Look in the mirror, because then you'll start carrying that throughout your day.
That's good.
And that is a really big one. Well,
That's good.
like I'll take clients and be like, no, let's go look in the mirror.
I love that because we did an episode on comparison and how diabolical comparison can be, and it's not to compare yourself, but it's again to really look at yourself and to figure out, okay, I'm slouching over or I'm standing, and start making changes. But you have to assess yourself honestly to be able to see yourself, right? So that's really big. How do you value, or where do you see, and I kind of know where you're going to go with this, but just for our listeners, we've got strength training. I want to talk about that, but cardio. Where do you see the two? What's most important if someone's to start, or how do they operate in sync?
So it's a triangle.
Okay.
So you have strength, cardio, and mobility, and you need those 3.
Okay.
So they are all equally important. And I think doing strength training as we get older is going to that is going to help your bone density.
Yeah.
Like you have to strength train, and you want your heart to be strong, and for the rest of your life, you've got to do cardio. And you have to do mobility. Like you can only strengthen as much as you can lengthen. So
Strengthen as much as you can lengthen.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So you got to get long, but you should be doing your stretching after. Don't, do dynamic stretching before a workout, and then your static stretching post workout. But getting that mobility, again, back to the yoga. I'm a big fan of doing restorative yoga once a week, and then doing, some stretching post workout. But so cardio is going to play a role in your strength training, because once you can start increasing your load and, lifting heavier, you're going to start feeling like, oh my gosh, that's
Right.
hard. Well, that's supposed to be so it's supposed to be hard. And you want it to, so that your heart gets stronger, so that everything gets stronger.
Right.
Yeah.
Dr. Peter Attia wrote a book called Outlive, and his studies have shown that your cardiovascular, if you get your VO2 max up, that it actually counteracts. I mean, this has been proven, counteracts dementia and early onset Alzheimer's. And so that's how important it is to have cardio in there too. I tore my ACL several years ago, and my right hip popped out of socket about 15 months ago. And I've got a rotator cuff problem. So I mean, like you, I've got a lot of things I'm overcoming.
Yeah.
But just recently, in the last about 3 months, I really felt convicted about increasing my cardio.
Yeah.
So I'm doing that at the gym. I go to the gym, 5-6 times a week. But I'm incorporating cardio. So I get on the treadmill now, and I'll walk, and then I'll sprint.
Yeah.
I'll walk and then I'll sprint. Now, at my age, a sprint isn't like what you think it is. It's just me
But it's a
moving
sprint for you,
faster,
yes.
right? It's not a true out and out sprint anymore.
Yeah.
And then I do the stairs, the Stairmaster thing and things like that. So I'm really working on that. And not only am I finding my breath and my lung capacity getting better, but I'm again with that, my legs are getting stronger, and I'm also getting my thoughts are getting clearer.
So I'm glad you touched on that. So in most gyms, if they don't have it, look it up on, you can always Google it. But the heart rate training zones, right? So I'm a really, really big fan of a heart rate monitor.
Yeah.
There's a really good book called Spark that was really good, and that's also on heart rate training and the importance of it. So a lot of my clients that come to me and haven't been working out a lot, we do a step test, an assessment, and sometimes they're just not used to having their heart rate up, right? So they don't know what that feels like. So the getting used to what your heart rate zones are, so get a heart rate monitor, and when you are working out, like look down, is your heart rate actually high?
Yeah.
Or is it perceived high? But maybe it is high. So having a heart rate monitor, like in the book Spark, he actually straps on heart rate monitor on all these kids and has them do a workout. They do PE class before school, and he changed this inner city school from like the worst performing school district to one of the best. And he put these heart rate monitors because that way he could tell if these kids were working hard.
Yeah.
So talk about brain function, because it was a game changer. And so, even people in their 40s and after, it's like, what is your heart rate training zone? What is zone 2, 3, 4, and 5 for you?
Right.
So zone 2, that's your fat burning zone. What is, where should you be at? I'm not getting into all the numbers, but look it up because it's pretty, start following it and get used to what that feels like. Now I train because I am an endurance athlete, train for triathlon. Like I can tell you when I'm in my zones.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, I read that about, all major competitive athletes know their heart rate and they train within that. When 15 years ago, when I started to do the half marathons and the marathons, and I got the heart rate monitor, and it was a game changer for me, because I would think I was really working out and I'd check my heart rate going, I'm not where I need to be. I need to pump this up a little bit more. And now I find I don't have the heart rate monitor on me anymore, but at the gym when I'm on the treadmill, I use the heart rate, that it'll tell you.
Yep.
And I'll find myself going a little too high.
Yeah.
And I'll back off.
Yep.
Because you have to be careful of that too, right?
Well, yeah. So when I competed in bodybuilding and that was all I did, I was like, there's no such thing as overtraining. But being an endurance athlete, yes, there is.
Yeah.
So when you keep your heart rate up too high for too long, and then, and you've been training like that for days, then you get this drained, you get irritable, you don't sleep very good. That's a big sign of overtraining.
Sure.
Irritability, not sleeping good at night.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So recovery is just as important. We haven't even talked about recovery.
No.
Like,
that'll have to be maybe another day, right?
Yeah. But take those rest days, and back onto the nutrition, electrolytes. I tell all my clients, I tell everybody who I work with, you should be drinking an electrolyte a day, at least. So having liquid IV, Element, Gatorade, something that's an electrolyte drink a day, at least one.
Right. Mm-hmm. And again, be careful that they don't have too much sugar in it, right?
A liquid IV might be a little bit higher in sugar, but depending on your workouts, like that, it may not be a factor.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, this has been so good. So is there anything that you would say to encourage as we end here? I mean, somebody who's again, they're like going, I know I need to make a change. Mm-hmm. I want to make a change. And to be honest with you, I'm a little scared. I'm scared of what it's going to look like for me. What would you tell that guy? Because a lot of guys wouldn't ask that, to somebody in person because they don't want to be that vulnerable. Mm-hmm. But we are challenging men to be vulnerable. We say all the time that a true masculinity is a man who's transparent and vulnerable and will make the changes he has to make. That's courageous.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
what would you say?
It's never too late to start.
Come on.
It's never too late to start. And don't be afraid to ask for help. And consistency. Those are the biggest things I would say is just to get started, and being consistent. And if you need some help, find somebody near you, start, doing some research. There's some great people online. There's so many resources out there.
So many. So many.
Yeah.
And maybe you find a friend who's a trainer like
Yeah,
I found with
yeah.
you. So, well, Carrie, thanks so much. This has been
Yeah.
so much fun. We're going to do it again, right?
I'd love you.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a blast.
Well, thank you all. This has been Next Third, Best Third. And like always, if you would subscribe, if you'd like, and more importantly, if you'd share this with some friends who are in your sphere of influence, go out and make your next third your best third. Thanks.